So, hi, parents or anybody who works with children. Just thought I'd put a few ideas down on here for you to have at disposal if you happen to have children that are suffering at the moment with fear or anxiety or anything related to this COVID-19 that you just kind of need some tools to work with those children. So, how can you help as a parent? How can you help that child who might be spiraling down in fear and really affected by what's going on in their little worlds around them? I've got a few little simple tips and techniques, things that I do with the little children that I have in the counselling sessions, some worksheets and resources you'll find that are attached to this little clip, and also some links to some really good reputable mental health for children websites. So just really briefly, this is not for you to have to explain to your children, but just so that you have really simple understanding of what's happening up here in the brain for a child when they're an absolute overload. Their brain is just overloaded with fear and anxiety. What's going on is that this part of the brain, which is the hippocampus, which is where the limbic system, the amygdala, which I call the smoke alarm, that when that all fires off, what happens here, the prefrontal cortex kind of shuts down. And when I'm explaining this to a child, I came up with this little illustration to explain it. And imagine that you're driving along with your mum or your dad are driving a car and you're in the back with your brothers and sisters, and all of a sudden they take your lolly off you. What happens? You're screaming at each other and, "Give me that, she stole my lolly and he poked me in the ear," so on and so on, right? And the children say, yeah, they get that. And the mums is usually in the background, yeah, we get that too. What happens in that instance is mum, whoever's driving, dad turns around and say, "Oi, you lot, I can't drive. I can't concentrate while you lot are carrying on like a 2-bob watch. Shut up, or I have to pull over to the side of the road and not going anywhere until you quieten down." That's a bit what happens in our brain. When this is all firing off and going nuts and we're super hyper aroused emotionally, mentally, the prefrontal cortex says, does not compute, can't make good decisions in that moment. You can't think straight because this is firing off. This needs to calm down, and this can then fire up again. Kids in the back seat, "Yeah, sorry, mum, we'll be quiet now." Mum can carry on and turn at the right turn, and so on. That's a really good way to explain it in a simple way to children. One of the things that we can do to calm this part of our brain down for your children and for yourself is to learn some really good simple breathing techniques. Now, one that I do with little children, and it's easy to do because you've got it with you all the time, is to use your hand. And I get the children, I do it with them, and I say, "Hold up your hand like this, and we're going to use this finger, and I want you to watch what your finger's doing. Every time your finger's going up, you breathe in. When it gets to the top, hold it. Do it with me. Out again." And so on. You do the whole hand with them. And if you see that it's working and they're starting to calm down, do it again with them. You do it with them as well. This is a really good way that they can, if you remind them, go and do your little hand breathing technique and get them to go sit down quietly and do that 2, 3, 4 times if you want. Another one I love to do is called elevator breathing. And I do this with one little boy that I have that I see, and he loves the elevator breathing. And I said, so, right, start down here, put your hands down here. And if you can see it, my hands are right as low as they go. So the elevator goes up, and as the elevator's going up, what do? We breathe in. Keep going till it reaches the top floor, and then hold it while all the people get out and all the scary bits get out. Hold it. And then it can go down again, and we breathe out. So do that one a few times with them too. That's elevator breathing. And they love that. Something really important for you to remember is it takes 20 minutes for the cortisol and adrenaline to actually flush out of their system as well as ours when we get distressed as well. So if we get on their case and say, "Hey, this is ridiculous, you're upset about nothing, calm down," and then expect them to go and do a job, that is really unfair. You wouldn't really expect that of yourself or a work colleague or your partner. It's really important to give that child time and space. I've got a picture here. This is on the resources that you'll find. I call it the anxiety thermometer. And if children are really distressed, you'll find, again, when they're distressed, the language part of their brain doesn't function like it normally does. So you might say to them when they're crying, what's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. And they say, oh, I don't know, I can't say it. That is actually normal. They can't put it into words because their language, part of their brain, isn't able to function while they're like that. So you can, when they've calmed down a little bit, you can say, point to where you're feeling on this thermometer. Right down the bottom is, if you're relaxed, everything okay? And as it gets up towards the top, super anxious, ask for help. Now, if they point up here, don't expect them to come up with the language for what's going on for them. Wait until they're calm and then gently invite them to share without criticism or judgment or shaming or minimizing. Just let them say what they need to say. It's so, so important for not just children, actually for everybody, that they're heard. That's really super duper important. So put that one on the fridge, put it on their bedroom door, whatever you need to do. I have this little picture for you there as well. The things that I can control. Some things that I can control are inside there. Things that I can't control are there. And so I had this little story that I do when I'm working with children. I say to them, imagine Daddy said, let's go on a picnic on Saturday and we'll go fly the kite and we'll eat really yummy food on the grass in the park. And everyone's excited, and then come Saturday morning, a huge thunderstorm comes and Dad says, oh, I'm really sorry, but we can't go to the park today because it's rainy and thundery and we can't have a picnic. So the child in that instance can get really anxious and really upset. And Daddy, you broke your promise, and say some unreasonable things, of course. We can help them in that instant to actually reframe that for themselves and look for something that's positive. And it's possible for the child to do that by reframing what Dad said, by realizing that they can have some control in that situation. They can control not the weather, but they can say, come up with a really interesting idea and say, why don't we have a picnic under our back veranda? And why don't we play Monopoly instead of fly a kite? See, there's some creative ideas that children can come up with when they're given that space to come up with an idea for themselves, rather than, no, you can't, no, shut up, you're being silly, and don't be stupid, we can't help you if it's raining. Those sort of sentences are not helpful, and in fact they're really minimizing the child. And for a sensitive child, that can actually cause that child to feel like they've been gaslighted or they've been really unheard, and that's not helpful. So there are some these are things that I use with children too, around cognitive behavioral therapy, talking with them about their thoughts and how the thoughts that they entertain and feed can actually affect their feelings, and their feelings can then affect their actions. So you might want to make things like this. I put these on the floor and go through little scenarios with the children, and they stand on this one, they tell me their thought, and so on. And then they move on to, how do you feel when you have that thought? And then what are you going to do on those feelings? So be creative. That's just another little thing that I do with the children. Don't forget too, lastly, that children are unique. Each child is unique. I love Proverbs 22 verse 6. It says, train up a child in the way that he or she should go, and when he is old, he/she will not depart from it. That's great, because it's talking about being a personalizing kind of a parent. Treat that child in the way that he needs or she needs. We're not cookie cutter Christians. God doesn't treat us all the same. He knows what I need. He knows how I tick, because he made me. He knows my personality, very different to everyone else's personality. But you might have a Johnny and a Mary, and Johnny might be an absolute extrovert, and Johnny might really, when he's distressed, he might want to be around his friends. Mary might be an introvert, and she might, I just want to be alone, I just want everyone not to talk to me, and they're looking at me. That's because that's her personality. So go with each child, find out what makes them tick, find out what they need when they're stressed out. Kids are far more resilient, and they watch what you do, they watch what you say, they watch how you respond in times of crisis, they watch what spills out of you when you get knocked. So make sure that you are doing your very best to plug into Jesus. So I'm going to put all these little bits and pieces up on the website, and take advantage of them if you want to. And I really pray that you will just have some wonderful, exciting times, if you're homeschooling especially, with your children, and see this not as a crisis time, but an opportunity time. God bless.